Hello and welcome to BennoCam. Got another shipwreck video for you today, and today we're going to be looking at the shipwreck site of the Cove, which is one of Cornwall's most well-known treasure shipwreck stories. Now this place has been known about as a treasure site for a long time, and there's been numerous historical attempts to recover this mythical treasure, which we're going to talk about in this video. And then I'm going to actually jump in and we're going to swim the headland and show you what's beneath the waves. Now a lot of the history that we know about this site actually comes from this book. So this is a modern reprint of a very old book. Now this was written by a man called Alfred Hayman Cummings in 1875. And it's within this book, there's actually an entire chapter on the wreck. And in these pages the author gives quite a good detailed description of all the different salvage attempts that took place here. He also explains exactly where the wreck site was thought to lay on the end of the headland. The story of the wreck originates from a supposed Spanish ship from around 1770, which was wrecked on the headland behind the old church at Gunwalloe. The wreck was said to be carrying a very rich cargo of several tons of silver coins, which was all lost to the sea when the ship went to pieces. After years of stories and several silver coins being found on the beach nearby, the first organised salvage attempt took place in 1845, when a group tried to recover the cargo by damming off the end of the gully where the wreck was thought to be located, and then pumping out the water so they could just climb down and pick up the coins. A newspaper article at the time describes just before the breakwater was finished, a southwest gale destroyed all their efforts before a single coin could be raised. This article is interesting because by this point the wreck is said to be from 1784 and is now carrying a staggering 17 million silver coins as well as gold. So this is the gully where the ship allegedly ended up being wrecked, spilling its very highly valuable cargo of silver coins. And it's to the sides here and here where they set out with all these different salvage attempts, which we'll go and have a look at now. You can see here they put eyes in the ground for attachments, and then there's this really cool cutting here, which is where they've actually mined through the whole headland here to be able to get down to this gully. It's so cool that this is still here. You think this has been made a long time ago, for something which may not have even existed. Now another attempt was made in 1847 when a gang of miners cut out this passageway here in the cliff, made these steps down, and they set about creating a mine shaft right next to the gully. The idea being that they would mine down, mine underneath the gully, and then be able to break into the water, and all the coins would come flooding into their workings and they could pump their workings out and recover the coins. Now despite supposedly making a mine shaft 3 meters wide, 25 feet down, unfortunately the sea did break in and they barely escaped with their lives. So we're going to look today to see whether or not there's any trace of this still left. And we're right down at the water's edge now. And yeah, this is the supposed gully where it all took place, where it all happened. And you can see there now how high up we've come from. So it's quite a route down the cliffs. Wouldn't recommend it if you're not very sure-footed. Wouldn't be good to have a mishap down here. And the viz looks good today. The water looks nice. And right behind me here are these little sockets which have been cut in the rock. So these holes, these are man-made. These are for fixing some kind of A-frame or some kind of, I'm not actually too sure. There's holes here in numerous places that have been drilled. There's some round ones there, and there's more of these square pockets here, here and here. So they must have had some kind of rig right here to be able to maybe lower pump equipment or something like that. Maybe they had a crane here, maybe they had pipes, maybe they had compressors, I'm not too sure. There were several more attempts to find this now well-known treasure, one of which included getting a suction dredger, which they managed to set up and actually suck out this entire gully here. But despite moving hundreds of tons of sand, no more coins were actually found. See here, look, we've got an old iron fastening here in the rock. You can see that's been leaded in, very old. Must have been part of the earlier salvage attempt. And yeah, there's loads of little bits and pieces like that. They're very well blended in, they're very hard to spot. It's just interesting being able to see these old traces of where either they had equipment here, or maybe they had cranes or whatnot. I'm not entirely sure. But they've definitely left behind traces they were here. It does make you wonder here, with the amount of effort that they actually put into creating these walkways and setting things into the rock and drilling holes. They must have truly believed there was something here worth putting all the effort in to try and get. Now we know that some coins have been recovered here. This is a coin on display in Helston Museum, which is supposed to have been found on the site in 1883. The writing on the reverse says that it was one of about 14 tons that was lost here in 1785. There are also numerous newspaper reports of coins being found over the years, but most sources will refer to these coins always being found on the beach rather than on the end of the rocky headland. You can see here as well how doubtful it is. How could a wreck have been wrecked right here in this gully, within this rock headland? How could it have been wrecked there? And then the coins that have all been found have managed to get all the way in on this beach. This is the beach where they find them. This is Dollar Cove. This is where at low tide supposedly coins were found many years ago. Not so many these days, but I do hear the odd one does turn up after storms or very, very low tides. But how did coins get from within there all the way around here? And this is all rocky reef and it's not smooth ground here, so I'm not so sure on how it ever got wrecked within that gully. Another interesting side note to this story is right here in this gully here, in this inlet, sorry, there's actually an iron cannon right here. Now, could these coins on that beach have come from this wreck? Nothing to do whatsoever with this gully. There's absolutely no evidence in this gully of there ever being an old wreck there. The whole thing is just, I don't know, maybe a little suspicious. All of these wrecks that we dive all over the Cornish coast, there's always traces of wreck. No matter how old they are, no matter how many people have dived them, we always manage to find traces, even the smallest traces, that there was once a shipwreck there. There's nothing old in this gully so far. Maybe there is and we just haven't found it yet. Right, we've had a good look now down at low tide, down on the rocks, seen the evidence of previous salvage attempts. So we know that this was the actual spot where they certainly concentrated their efforts looking for things. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be going back to the truck, we're going to get some diving gear, and we're going to show you what's underwater. Right, we are going to go for a dive now, and we're going to show you what is still left underwater. We enter the water and swim out towards the headland, over the kelp-covered reef where a single iron cannon has been spotted in the past. Unfortunately today the sand levels are high and the cannon is buried, but the underwater visibility is very good and the sea is calm, which is rare for this section of coastline. Rounding the headland, we enter the start of the main gully. You can see here that the bedrock is almost visible, and there's just not the metres of sand here that is often described in the older attempts at digging for the lost treasure. Within the centre of the gully are two thick cast iron bars. Could these be part of one of the many salvage attempts here? Maybe even part of the 1845 attempt to dam this gully off and to try and pump it out. Another interesting aspect of this site is how it seems to change every year, or even after every visit. This is the exact same area the year before, where the iron bars were much clearer, with less sand and seaweed covering the area on this dive.
On that trip, we were even able to locate what could have been the remains of the dollar mine shaft, although we think this is too small according to the records of what they achieved, and more likely a natural feature eroded by the movement of stones in storms. We have also visited this site with metal detectors, but despite finding several items amongst the rocks, none of these have turned out to be particularly old. The excitement of a glimmer of silver in the sand turned out to be the remains of a modern stainless steel knife. The rest of the headland is a pleasant enough swim, with plenty of wildlife to look at along the way, but no other traces of wreck material or anything out of the ordinary.
Right, that is the entire Dollar Point headland swam. And yeah, there's unfortunately not an awful lot there to see underwater. There's not really any wreckage as such. There's certainly no silver coins laying about, which is a great shame. We are now at Church Cove, which is the other side of the headland. And before we go, I'm going to show you something else on the headland opposite, which I think may be related to the story, or could possibly be related to the story of the dollar site. Right, we are up on the next headland now to the south of Church Cove, which is there in the distance behind me. Now this headland has an interesting site, which I just wanted to talk to you a bit about, because I think it's a little bit too much of a coincidence when you talk about this headland with the story in relation to the dollar wreck story. Because here on the end of the headland, which I'm just approaching, is a very interesting gully where divers years ago found an awful lot of silver coins. Now this gully shares a striking resemblance to the one on Dollar Point. Now I've got to be a bit careful here, but we'll go towards the edge so that we can show you and talk to you about this place. Now this headland and this gully in particular right here, years ago divers found, the story goes, between 300 to 400 silver coins in this very gully. Now these aren't pillar dollars, so it can't be the same story as such, but the fact that there's a gully so similar to that headland over there, which is known to have been full of silver coins. So an entire hour's dive this morning in this very gully, I actually managed to find this coin in the bottom of the gully with a metal detector, moving lots of rocks. It was a lot of hard work, but I managed to find one. So it does go to show that coins here do still exist. This gully 100% had silver coins in it. And look how close they are. You know, you're talking right here compared to that headland over there. It would be so easy for these two places to have either got confused or just the two stories to maybe blend into one. Of course, the other possibility with this gully is that it just might be the case that over time people mistook this place for that one. Or maybe they even deceptively told people it wasn't this one. Maybe it was always known to be this one that was full of silver, and people just said, oh no, it's the next gully over, it's the next one to the north. Maybe that's how the location got changed, way before even those first salvage attempts. I don't know. It just seems a strange coincidence that there's two very similar looking gullies on two headlands so close distance apart that both are full of silver coins, and yet this one right here we're finding silver coins in. And that one over there, I've dived that quite a lot now, and I haven't found a single coin there. And not only that, I've never spoken to anyone who's actually found a single coin in the gully. Plenty of people have found them on the beach over there. That's the next weird thing. So, my theory is that perhaps there's two wrecks here. One wreck with pillar dollars was wrecked on that headland, with most of the coin ending up on the beach, whatever coin it had, and a second wreck carrying these Spanish and Portuguese coins, which got wrecked in this gully right here. Now over time, these two wrecks have somehow been blended into one and have been moved to the headland over there, where I personally don't believe there are any more silver coins. But as ever, you have to keep looking, and we will keep looking, and maybe in a few years we can update this story and tell you that there is actually silver coins over there. I don't personally believe there is, but there you are. That is the story of the Dollar Wreck and the Dollar Cove, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a look at my other dive videos if you have. I've got plenty more shipwreck stories and treasure stories all on YouTube. Check out my channel. And yeah, thanks for watching, and we will catch you again soon for more shipwreck and treasure videos.